Manor. Visit Manor Entertainment's official website and social media. Our official website is manorhq.com. Follow us on Twitter at officialmanor. We're on Instagram at Manor Entertainment. And our YouTube channel is listed under Manor Entertainment, where you'll find many of our features currently playing. Again, visit our website, manorhq.com. Follow us on Twitter at officialmanor. Follow us on Instagram at Manor Entertainment, and subscribe to our YouTube channel listed under Manor Entertainment. As always, share with others and spread the word. Have you subscribed to Manor Post? Receive the latest news and updates when Manor Entertainment's weekly newsletter is delivered to your email every Saturday. A subscription is free and takes less than 30 seconds to sign up. Go to manorhq.com and fill out the form on the homepage. Join the rapid growing list of Manor Post subscribers by requesting your weekly delivery today. Sign up at manorhq.com. That's manorhq.com. So you have something to sell in the horror genre market. Maybe it's your novel, or maybe it's your artwork, or maybe it's your podcast. Whatever horror genre product or service you have, you can reach your target audience by becoming a Manor Entertainment sponsor. It's both easy and affordable. The current rates are the lowest they'll ever be, but they won't remain that low forever. Get started today by sending an email to contact@manorhq.com for more information. Become a Manor Entertainment sponsor today. Email contact@manorhq.com.
Warning. The following program may contain violence, explicit language, sexual situations, and dark content, unsuitable for some listeners. It is intended for mature audiences only. Discretion is advised.
Presented in cinematic audio.
The door to my pickup truck cracked open, and I slid out, lunch pail in hand. When I bought her in 1967, she was something else. Now, she's a bit less. The sun peeked through the skyscrapers surrounding the cemetery. The sexton fulfilled his daily communication requirement with the wave as he bustled past. We had an unspoken agreement. He stayed out of my way and let me do my work. In exchange, I did my work. The first visitors were the early birds, who got their walking done before their day really began. Once they headed to work or school, the place was pretty empty until the lunch rush of picnickers who chose to dine with the dead. I used to wonder what made a cemetery a social place instead of a place of mourning. Now, I know it's because the inhabitants have been dead so long that everyone who ever loved them was dead themselves. Well, almost everyone. So, snot-nosed kids, trendy city dwellers, nosy dogs, and wannabe photographers graced us with their presence throughout the day. They never mourned, never even placed a pebble on a headstone. If they hardly acknowledge the headstones, they certainly don't see the dead. That's the difference between them and me. I've been the caretaker here for nearly 50 years, through 2 weddings and 1 divorce. I'd like to have buried Esther here, but there isn't a plot available for a poor caretaker's wife. Not even in Potter's Field, where they lay without markers. I'd never seen a dead person before I started working here in '62. Samson, my predecessor, taught me how to unfocus my eyes, how to listen, how to wait. It was hard at first, but before too long, I had to plot my journeys to avoid other cemeteries in town. The worst were the ones overseen by churches. Religious folk would never communicate with the dead. Their book tells them not to. Without caretakers of their own, the dearly departed call out to anyone who can hear them. I still hear them when I lay in bed at night. Faint but constant. Not all the deceased need me. Most of them have nothing to say. Some do, and that's my job, the one I don't get paid for. I help them go wherever it is they go. The infinite wisdom that endowed me with my abilities did not seem fit to endow me with the knowledge of their destination. They ask me all the time. My lack of an answer has kept many lingering here, the fear of the unknown stronger than the pull to go on. That's what I call it. On. The previous caretaker called it heaven. I don't want to get any hopes up. After all, who am I to say? A bee buzzed in my ear. I swatted it, realizing I had just been standing there staring at an azalea bush. I reminded myself I was getting old. Then I reminded myself that getting passed years ago. With my lunch pail still in my hand, I looked to the bell tower. It's acres from here, and my hip was already throbbing. A marble mausoleum, guarded by gargoyles, stood a few yards away. Pulling the key off the giant ring that weighed me down for years, I stashed my lunch. It was an early spring day, and the stone would keep it plenty cool. Flowers and buds abounded further than my failing eyes could see. It always struck me as weird to see so much life in a place of the dead. Cemetery policy allowed only real flowers and plants within these gates. Plastic flowers depress our visitors. They reek of the forgotten. Hours passed. I hobbled along as good as these old legs would take me. I pulled weeds, picked up litter, watered bushes, all the things it takes to make this place hospitable. The sexton walked out the gates. I locked them as the sun set behind me. Nighttime is when my work really begins. The dead come out in a noisy drove, protesting being quiet all day. Chattering, they scatter about, heading to their favorite places. I walked in the section where the Confederate soldiers lay. Headstones lined up like tin soldiers. Obelisks stood tall as their generals. The Confederates stood before me, threadbare gray uniforms hanging on their gaunt frames. There were so many that needed me, I had to schedule my time to be fair to the other sections. I've had amazing success with the soldiers. One night, early in my career, I helped 30 move on just by introducing them to the inhabitants of Slave Square. Being forgiven goes a long way. So does forgiven. Many slaves moved on that night too. I hope, wherever they ended up, they got a better shake than they got here. Some Confederates moved on when I spoke of segregation. Then years later, more moved on when I spoke of its end. A mass exodus occurred in both the Confederate Memorial and Slave Square when we elected our first black president. I spoke with the young men and the old, but I was exhausted, and it seemed no one was moving on tonight. I told them goodbye until next time and headed out. 2 friends sat on a bench beneath the pink dogwood tree. Like most friendships here, they hadn't known each other in life. I nodded as I passed. Pete called out to me.
Any leavers tonight, boss?
No such luck, I replied over my shoulder. Old Pete says he's never leaving. Says he wants to see how everything pans out. I suppose he will at that. A figure waited just inside the gate. Andrew. If it were anyone else, I would have told them it was late, I was tired, and I'd get with them tomorrow. But it wasn't anyone else. It was Andrew.
Hey, boss.
It's been a while since we talked. I was beginning to think that you didn't want to anymore.
Did you think I'd moved on?
I don't think I'm that lucky. He, like the rest, wore what he was buried in. He looked as alive as the living. His chest even rose and fell as he breathed. Inside those gates, he could do anything he wanted. Sit, run, walk, talk, smoke, whatever. Just never leave. Not ever. It's more like eternal loitering than eternal rest. I told Andrew that, and he tried to fake a laugh, but it came out more like a quack. I think it had been a long time since he truly laughed. I could tell he wanted to walk, but my tired legs had no interest. Under a sprawling oak tree sat a weather-worn bench. When the breathing had their run of the place, happy couples smiled and had their pictures taken beneath the wild branches. I didn't care about how picturesque the setting. I was just grateful to be off my feet. Lamplight illuminated his silhouette as he ran his hand over cropped hair. We sat in silence for a while, looking out at the gravestones. As discreet as possible, I checked my watch. It had gone midnight, and I had to be back in less than 8 hours. Andrew, why are we sitting here?
I have another memory. About Millie. I thought you might like to hear it.
I bent and straightened my left leg, trying to soothe the dull pain. Stifling a sigh, I nodded for him to begin. Millie and Andrew had been married for just 6 short years before he died 64 years ago. In all the time I've been here, he must have told me 1,000 stories. I didn't see how there could be one he hadn't told me yet. I knew what he needed to be able to go on, and I think on some level, he did too. He began.
It was a stifling day at the end of the heat wave of 45. We didn't know it was the end of it, and it felt like it'd last forever. The band inside my hat was so damp, it threatened to expose itself to the world. I didn't even bother folding my handkerchief back after wiping my brow. If the heat was bothering her, it didn't show. She was a tough nut to crack, that one. We'd been married 3 years, and people were beginning to question when the babies would start coming, myself included. Every 4 or so weeks, she would come out of the powder room less composed than when she went in. One time, I asked her what was wrong, and she said, nothing. But I could see in her eyes how hard it was on her. I told her that we would be enough for each other, that nothing could bring me more happiness than I already had. She took me in her arms and wept. We stood that way for a while. I just let her cry it all out. When she stepped away, she wiped her face dry. After that day, there was no more sadness for her, Not until the day I left her.
His head dropped. He never used the word died. Most didn't. It was taboo. I put a hand on his shoulder. It sat there. It didn't go through him like it would in some stupid movie. It felt like nothing. Like a mime in a pretend box. That's a nice story, Andrew. I stood up to go. I'll be back tomorrow. We'll talk more then if you'd like.
Boss, will you check in on her?
You've asked me before, and I told you I can't.
I have a bad feeling.
Andrew.
Please, boss. I'm begging you.
There was something in the way he stood there, wringing his hands, chin set, that gave me a bad feeling too. All right, I'll go. Just don't say anything to the rest of these folks, or I'll never have a moment's peace. The next day, I left my trusty pail at home. I had a lunch date. My predecessor had told me never to intercede outside these gates, told me to do my best with what I had. All those years, I had listened. Not anymore. On my way out to lunch, I waved as I passed the sexton. Looking puzzled, he returned the gesture. Panicking that I was acting out of the ordinary, I told myself that he knew nothing, suspected nothing. Even if he knew where I was going to go, it meant nothing. I'm an old man. He would probably just think I was checking out the place for myself. Winding River Retirement Home, aging with respect since 1987. Sitting in my truck, I tried to force myself to go inside. The numbers on the clock increased as I looked on. Imagining the angry face of the sexton got me moving. He wouldn't care that my lunch ran over because I was too afraid to go inside. Afraid they would see my advanced age and hold me hostage. Or, more likely, that I would catch a glimpse of my future. Inside, cleaning supplies did their best to mask the scent of sadness emanating from every inch. I signed using a pen with a large yellow plastic flower taped to the end. Told them I didn't want a tour. I was just here to visit a dear friend. I drifted to the rec room while I waited for the paged orderly. The windows had no bars. I felt like they should, until I looked around. These folks weren't going anywhere. In the corner, a television set surrounded by wheelchairs. It was the old box kind, not the fancy flat screens that the world decided they couldn't live without. Behind me, an old man stood up and called out.
Excuse me.
I turned to see what he needed. I'm the only one who did. In his three-piece suit and slicked back hair, he looked regal, like he didn't belong.
I say, excuse me. Has anyone seen my watch? I know I've put it on.
Check your pocket, Harold,
said the lady behind the glass, without looking up from her monitor. He pulled a watch from his vest pocket and smiled, embarrassed.
Oh, yes, of course. So sorry.
As he returned to his seat, I got the feeling he would be asking the same question in just a few short moments.
You here for Millie Traynor?
Asked a young man with black curly hair. Yes, sir. He gestured for me to follow him. I obliged, glad to be out of that room to move the task along.
I'm happy to see you here.
He paused outside the door marked 114 in cheap metal numbers. Why is that?
She doesn't get many visitors. No one here does. It's like they've all been forgotten.
I patted his shoulder. I know exactly what you mean, son.
Like ghosts.
Sorry?
They're like ghosts. Waiting to happen.
Had no idea that would be happening. Had zero idea that song was about to play. Zero. I was surprised as you were. We have a call-in topic tonight.
Over the years, a picture of a person had formed out of all the stories I'd heard. A person full of life and love. The shell reclining on the bed couldn't be her. Thin white hair was fluffed up in an attempt to cover visible patches of bare scalp. Pink lipstick was smeared on her lips. Millie? I pulled a chair over to the bedside.
Why, hello. Who are you?
I'm a friend, Millie. I've come to see how you're doing.
Oh, I see. Say, do you know my Andrew? Do you think he'll visit later?
She leaned up and looked to the door as if he might waltz in any second. Yes, I know Andrew. That's why I'm here. He wanted me to check in on you. She dismissed my statement with a wave of her thin hand.
I'll be fine if these people could remember to bring me my morning paper.
I'll have a word with them for you. Her eyes drifted to the barless window. They glazed over as she watched nothing. I cleared my throat to get her attention back.
Oh, hello. And who are you?
I'm a friend, Millie.
Oh, I see. Do you know my husband, Andrew?
Blinking back tears, I stood to my feet. I took my hat off and bowed to her. It was good seeing you, Millie. I'll be back real soon. The orderly was waiting for me outside Millie's door. He gestured down the hall until I was certain we were out of her hearing range. How's she doing?
You sat with her. How does she seem?
I rubbed my forehead. Not so good. Does she have much time left?
She has all the time in the world left. Her brain, what's left of it, is deteriorating, and it will continue until she has no awareness left. Everything else is in tip-top shape.
So what you're saying is...
What I'm saying is that she could easily live for another 5 years.
He gave me an inquisitive look.
Who were you to her again?
I patted his shoulder, turned, and walked away. Andrew appeared by my side as soon as the gates were locked for the evening. His hands trembled as he straightened his shirt.
Did you see her?
I did. I shook the gate one last time to make sure it was locked.
How was she?
Good. Very healthy. He narrowed his eyes at me.
That isn't what I saw.
What do you mean? He rubbed the back of his neck.
When I see her, she seems not so good.
I got that part. But how do you see her? Samuel, a young Confederate soldier, stood a few feet away, twisting his hat in his hands. I'll be with you in a second, Sam. You go on now. Pulling his hat on, he walked away with his head down. Whatever he wanted would have to wait. What do you mean, you see her?
I don't know. She comes to me sometimes. When she does, she's real faint. You can almost see right through her. She looks old. My God, she's gotten so old. Still as beautiful as the day I met her, though. She only stays around for a couple of seconds at a time, and then she is gone again.
I tried to make sense of what I was hearing. What does she say to you?
She says my name and tells me that she's alone and scared.
And then what happens?
Nothing. She's gone, as quick as she appeared.
How often does this happen?
A lot. It happened once when you were at lunch.
The hairs on the back of my neck stood on end. I thought about Millie talking to me, and then staring blankly out the window, seeming so far away. How does she know to come here? It doesn't make any sense.
How am I supposed to know? You're the caretaker.
A chill ran down my spine, thinking back to what the orderly said about ghost and waiting. Surely he had been speaking metaphorically.
Sorry, boss, I'm not cross with you. It's just... Will you help her?
I got to my feet as fast as my old bones would take me. Yeah, I'll help her. The nurse behind the glass seemed surprised to see me walk in, suitcase in hand. I guess not too many residents choose to admit themselves. The orderly, the same young guy as yesterday, showed me to my room.
You just can't get enough of this place, can you?
It appears not, son.
You must really care about her to move in here. Say, you're not Andrew, are you?
I tried to hide my fear and nonchalance. Oh, no. I'm not here for her. I mean, I was yesterday. I was really impressed with your facilities and ready to take a more relaxing position for the rest of my life. He stopped outside a plain brown door labeled 139.
Whatever you say, sir.
That night, even if I wished for sleep, it wouldn't have come. Lying in a lumpy, unfamiliar bed, I stared up at the ceiling, making my plan, biding my time. Deciding there was no time like the present, I cracked the door and watched the hall. I kept one eye on it and one on the clock. 20 minutes went by without a drop of activity. Taking a deep breath, I looked left, right, and left again before stepping into the hall. Dim lights illuminated every 3 or 4 steps, making bubbles of light to guide my feet. Door 114. Trying not to make a sound, I turned the handle as slowly as I could. Padding, sock-footed, I stepped in and let my eyes adjust. Millie lay asleep. That made things easier. I pulled the pillow from under her head. "I'm sorry," I whispered, as the pillow hovered over her face. Her eyes popped open, and in the dim emergency light found mine and met them with coherency and fear. I forced the pillow down, hands on either side, leaning in with my weight and pushing with all I had. Her body struggled and writhed beneath me, and then it stopped. She lay still for a moment, and I kept pushing. Then she fought back harder than before, clawing at my arms. Finally, she stopped. So did I. Avoiding looking at her cloudy, lifeless eyes, I took her pulse to make sure the job was done. That's all it was, I kept telling myself. Just another part of my job. I gently lifted her head and placed it back on her pillow. There was no investigation, no evidence gathered, no questions asked. There was just a body taken away in a bag like it was nothing, like it happened every day. because it did. I stayed on another week to not look suspicious, not the way I planned on using all my vacation time, but I tried to make the best of it. Played some checkers, read a book. The food was bland, but all right. More accurately, I tried not to think of those eyes, filled with fear and knowledge, and snuffed out by my hand. They were my every waking thought. Her lifeless eyes and the accusations that lay within them. 7 days after my arrival, I walked out the same doors I walked in. Told the nurse I was ready to go back home. In truth, I was. The orderly walked me out. I watched as he put my suitcase in the passenger side of my truck. "You happy here, son?"
More than you were, it would seem.
He squinted in the sun. "If you're ever looking to make a change, we'll be looking for a caretaker at Oakland Cemetery before long. I think you might be perfect for the job." A dusting of snow capped the gravestones. Illuminated by the moon and lamplight, this place looked almost magical. If the snow sticks, tomorrow will be filled with brave photographers. In an attempt to be reassuring, I offered him a smile. It didn't work. White flakes stuck to his dark curls. The moonlight reflected off his wide eyes, giving him a feral look. I might be his first complete ghost.
I don't understand why you're telling me this.
Because, son, you've got a job to do, and I'm here to teach you how to do it.
But why?
The residents here, mostly they are forgotten. Mostly they have nothing to say. But when they do, someone has got to listen. A snowflake fell between us. And now, that someone is you. You've been listening to Manor House, Episode 28, Mostly They Are Forgotten, presented in cinematic audio. Subscribe to this show and leave a rating, a review, and general feedback wherever you're receiving this program. Share with others on social media and at home. Your feedback, as well as sharing with others, helps grow and continue future productions. Credits. This episode was originally recorded and produced in 2016. Performances by Rock Capuano as Pete, Christopher Ford as Andrew, Sharon Bloomberg as Millie, Dustin Davis as Orderly. Story by D.H. Tuck. Directed, produced, edited, and scripted by Rock Capuano. Audio and sound design provided by EttalSFX. Music by Peter Rudenko. Kogue, Chris Zabriskie. Theme song by Alan Postscript, based on The Shining by the Angelas. Cover art by Haman Hajapur. Manor House was created by Rock Capuano. Manor House is a Manor Entertainment production. The story, all names, characters, and incidents portrayed in this production are fictitious. No identification with actual persons, living or deceased, places, buildings, and products is intended or should be inferred. This production is property of Manor Entertainment, LLC. No portion of this production may be reproduced or used by any means without the proper written consent of Manor Entertainment, LLC. This production is protected under the copyright laws of the United States and other countries throughout the world.
Country of first publication, United States of America. Any unauthorized exhibition, distribution, or copying of this production, or any part thereof, may result in civil liability and criminal prosecution. Copyright 2019, Manor Entertainment, LLC. Manor.